Hello there, this is Shirdel, and welcome to the first video in this Tekken speedrunning tutorial series. A very quick forward before we get started. Firstly, thank you for choosing to watch this video. Whether you're interested in speedrunning the Tekken game or you're just curious about how a Tekken speedrun operates, it's your curiosity that made this tutorial series possible. Also, thank you to every one of my now 1,000 plus Twitch followers who watch me speedrun this series. This video series is my 1,000 follower special because Twitch is all about variety and I want to give those followers more variety. By getting some streamers potentially into speedrunning Tekken at a higher level, that gives those viewers more variety on who to watch, inspires friendly competition, and above all, grows the community. If you're one of those 1,000 plus Twitch followers, you know how much I love Tekken and how badly I want to see more runners. So I'm not going to waste any more time talking about that here. Let's get started. There are two important notes I want to make before we get started with the fundamentals. First, although the first two videos in this series are general videos going through how to speedrun any Tekken game, I'm going to be playing Tekken 3 in this tutorial and I'm going to assume you are as well. If you don't physically own Tekken 3, you can play on an emulator. I'm not going to tell you how, but if you look it up you certainly can. If you want to learn how to speedrun a Tekken game other than 3, that isn't a problem. The vast majority of content in the first two videos is universally true in all Tekken games, so it won't be much trickier to follow along. The way I'm going to teach, especially in this video, will be by explaining and showcasing something such as a feature or technique and then presenting challenges to you for you to perform. You can follow the tutorial any way you like, but I recommend you pause the video while performing these challenges and then keep watching after you're done. You don't have to perform the challenges to progress in the tutorial. For example, if you're watching the video while out or you haven't got Tekken turned on at the moment, but if I cover anything you're uncertain of, you should make a note of it and come back to the video later to go through it. While I'm explaining something, you may see some text appear in the bottom left. This will show which games in this series include a particular feature which I'm discussing at that moment. If you don't see any text, you can safely assume that it's a feature included in all games of the series. You may not be able to follow the challenges properly in other Tekken games, but don't worry, as I intend to create other videos dedicated to specific Tekken games in the future. Secondly, depending on your skill at Tekken, you can actually skip this video if you wish. Part 1 of this series is about fundamentals, meaning if you already know the fundamentals, you can skip straight to part 2. If you are a casual Tekken player, or you speedrun other games and want to learn Tekken, then keep watching. If you're good at Tekken, and by good I mean you can perform or at least understand how to perform complex techniques such as Korean backdashing, wave dashing and electric wind godfist, then feel free to skip to part 2. Still watching? Great. Then turn on Tekken 3 or Tag Tournament, go into practice mode and pick Jin. If you're playing on Tekken 2 or 4, pick Kazuya, and if you're playing on any game after Tekken 5, pick Devil Jin. Training starts now. So, this tutorial is going to be extremely thorough, meaning I'm going to assume that you, the viewer, have absolutely zero experience with Tekken. In truth, you all have varying experience with Tekken, and it's likely that even if you aren't a pro, you'll already know the early parts of the tutorial. Please bear with me though, I'm doing this intentionally, because we're going to relearn Tekken from the ground up together. Recapping on parts of the game you already know will help you understand more complex elements of the game later, as well as fill in any holes in your fighting acumen. The first thing you need to learn is that Tekken is a limb-based fighting game. That means each face button on the controller is assigned to a limb. Assuming you're playing on a PlayStation controller like I am, square is assigned to left punch, triangle is assigned to right punch, X is assigned to left kick, and circle is assigned to right kick. These are your basic attacks. By combining buttons with directional inputs on your pad or stick, you can perform your character's unique attacks. Before that, I'm going to be a bit cheeky and give you your first challenge. Now, watch out because it's a doozy. Perform each button one after the other. Press each button one after the other. Press square to perform a left punch, triangle to perform a right punch, X to perform a left kick, and circle to perform a right kick. If you're unsure on how to press a button, I would recommend using your thumb, or alternatively, you can use your index or middle finger if you're playing with the claw method. Okay? Okay, done? Sweet. That is one challenge out of the way. Man, learning how to speedrun Tekken is easy. Carrying on now, you may recall I mentioned directional inputs, and that is because your character can move in 3D as well as attack. Holding right makes the character move forward, and holding left makes the character move backward. You can guess if I was controlling the character on the right hand side, that would be reversed. Holding left makes your character move forwards, and holding back would make me move backwards. You can also hold down to crouch and hold up to jump. You can also hold multiple directions at the same time. By holding diagonally down and forward, you can move forward while crouching. Or by holding diagonally down and backwards, you can move backwards while crouching. Holding up and forward will make you jump forward, and holding up and back will make you jump backward. These 8 directional inputs are the 8 directions you can move in while playing Tekken. When combined with one or multiple button presses, they form the unique moves that each character holds. Technically speaking, there are actually 9 directional states in Tekken. Pressing nothing is also considered a directional state. This is known as a neutral input. We'll cover this in more detail later, but for now, just be aware it exists. If you're proficient in other fighting games, you may be aware of the number direction system, where neutral is 5. If not, don't worry about it. Tekken has its own system, which I'll cover in a moment. Think of it like this. When pressing an attack button on its own, such as triangle, you're performing neutral plus triangle. If your opponent tries to attack you and you press nothing, you'll block the move because you're in neutral guard, as I'll quickly demonstrate here. It's kind of like learning about how 0 is used in maths. It's just one of those things you have to wrap your head around. Neutral inputs. Again, if you don't understand now, don't worry, it might click for you later. But first, challenge 2. Press triangle again with Jin to do a right punch. Then press forward in triangle at the same time to do another right punch. Do you notice any difference between the 2 punches? Pause the video now and try it. So here's the difference. Neutral triangle, forward in triangle. It's just a very brief example of how directional inputs combined with button presses give you unique attacks. Moving on, there are other forms of movement you can do in Tekken. The first 2 are dashes and back dashes. To dash, quickly press forward twice in a row, and to backdash, quickly press backward twice in a row. I'll just show you again on webcam quickly, full screen. To dash, press forward twice in a row, and to backdash, press backwards twice in a row. Of course, it depends on what side of the screen you're on. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Dashes are used to either quickly close the gap on your opponent or quickly get more space. As you can see, I'm getting space here, and now I can dash and quickly close space. This isn't a challenge, but just dash forwards and backwards a couple of times to get the hang of it. You can also run towards the opponent. To do this, first backdash far away so you're on the opposite end of the screen. then tap forward 3 times, and make sure you hold forward the 3rd time you press it. 1, 2, 3. Forward, forward, forward. If you run from far enough away, you can perform an unblockable shoulder barge, which runs through your opponent, which is very useful in certain situations. Challenge 3, try performing certain attacks while you're in the running state. See what happens when you press X while running, what happens when you press circle while running, and what happens when you press square and triangle at the same time while running. Let's quickly see what happens when you do press those while running. The last form of movement we'll cover is sidestepping. You may have noticed that even though Tekken is a 3D game, everything we've covered so far has been 2-dimensional. Sidestepping is the way you move through that 3rd dimension. And a well-timed sidestep can dodge an opponent's attacks. Tap up to sidestep to Jin's left, and tap down to sidestep to Jin's right. Again, this is flipped when you're on the other side, where tapping down will move to Jin's left and tapping up will move to Jin's right. Make sure you don't hold down or hold up. You don't want to jump or crouch. You just want a very light tap. Again, try it a couple of times until you get the hang of it. You can also perform side walking. To do this, press up twice and hold the 2nd up input, or do the same with down. It's the same as running. Up, up, down, down. Make sure you press the inputs quickly, so there's practically no time between the 2 inputs. The next topic we're going to learn about is different heights or levels of attack. There are 4 attack heights: high, mid, special mid, and low. These 4 levels of attack can be defended in 2 different ways. Standing guard, done by holding back or standing perfectly still, and crouch guard, done by holding diagonally down and back. Standing guard blocks all types of attack except low attacks, while crouching guard blocks special mid and low attacks and ducks under high attacks, but cannot block mid attacks. To give you an example of different attack heights, I'm going to press start, go to training dummy or training dummy 1 and pick stand guard. Now I'm going to perform 1 attack of each height and see what happens. As a basic example, square is a high attack, forward in triangle is a mid attack, down in square is a special mid attack, and down in circle is a low attack. The AI blocked the first 3 moves and got hit by the low. Okay, it's time for challenge 4. Go back to the training dummy and change the AI to crouch guard and perform the moves I just did. How does the AI react to each move? Again, that is square, forward in triangle, down in square, and down in circle. Pause the video now. So here's how the AI reacts while in crouch guard to each of those 4 moves. Square, goes over, forward in triangle, hits, down in square, blocked, down in circle, blocked. While we're on the subject of blocking, there are some moves known as unblockable attacks, which as the name suggests, cannot be blocked. Throws are technically unblockable, although they can be broken, or more on throws later though. Each character has at least 1 unblockable attack, while some such as Ogre have over 10. Jin has 2, one that comes out quite quickly, and one that takes twice as long to come out, but does double the damage. Unblockable attacks are important for the speedrun, but for now you just need to know that they exist. Now we're going to move on to learning a very important aspect of Tekken, and that is its notation system. This system was created by players as a way of being able to type moves quickly and identify moves regardless of the console you're playing on. Arcade, PlayStation, Xbox, etc. The basic notation will be displayed on the screen now. What you can see is that each direction is represented by a letter and each attack button is represented by a number. Up is U, down is D, back is B, and forward is F. The diagonal directions are also represented by the two directions adjacent to it, those being up/forward, up/back, down/forward, and down/back. If it's a little confusing to you, think of this system as being like a compass. If up is north and forward is east, then up/forward is northeast. The attack buttons are usually represented by numbers. 1 is square, 2 is triangle, 3 is X, and 4 is circle. This isn't too complicated to learn, but may take a while to memorize. I'm going to be using this notation system for the rest of the tutorial, so it should be ingrained into memory by then. Even though you don't need to learn this notation system to speedrun Tekken, it's important to learn as everyone in the Tekken community uses this system. And if you want to learn more about Tekken outside of this tutorial, you will come across these notations at some point. We're going to be learning the rest of the symbols in this notation system now. And to start with, it might look a little more like algebra than Tekken. Don't worry though, because I'm going to give you challenges so you can memorize these symbols quickly and efficiently. Many attacks in Tekken require you to press multiple inputs at the same time. This is represented in the notation system with a plus. For example, down +3 +4 will perform Jin's can kicks, like so. You can also perform several attacks in a row, which is known as an attack string. Jin's staple jag combo is performed by pressing 1, 2, 2, or 1, 2, 2. Each individual attack in the string is split up with a comma, so that you know not to press two buttons at the same time. 1, 2, 2. Some moves require you to press two buttons in quick succession, the same as dashing. An example is Jin's Demon Scissors move, performed by pressing 4, then 3 afterwards. The small gap between the two button presses is represented with a tilde. Try performing the move multiple times until you get the hang of the motion. You can try sliding your thumb across the two buttons, or quickly dance your fingers across both buttons, one after the other. Some forms of movement also have their own notation. The capital letters refer to a held input, as in you hold that direction rather than tapping it. The N stands for neutral, as in letting go of the pad and not pressing anything. I'm going to perform the same input 4 times, each in slightly different ways, to highlight how even pressing a button in a slightly different way can drastically change the result. Watch this example. Challenge 5, and this is your first major challenge. Pause the video and try performing each of the following moves in order. After you attempt the challenge, you can keep watching and see if you got them all right. Did you execute each move properly? If not, go back and try the moves you missed again. Figure out what was wrong. I'm going to show you what each of these moves look like now. If you've completed the challenge, then great job. You now understand a majority of the basic attacks, forms of movement, and notation used in Tekken. Now we're going to cover some other attacks and forms of movement, but we need to do this with another character. So, let's go back to character select, and this time we'll pick Paul. The reason why we're swapping to Paul is because he has some features that Jin doesn't. The first of those we're going to cover is sways. Paul has a forward sway and a backward sway. which are performed by pressing quarter circle forward or quarter circle backward motions on your paddle stick. These sways are a nice way to either gain or make a little bit of distance, making the opponent guess which move you're going to do, and also have the feature of being able to duck under highs during part of a sway notion. Something we'll cover in more detail later. Starting with a forward sway, what is a quarter circle forward motion? Well, if you've ever done a Hadouken on Street Fighter, you already know how to do it. You start by pressing down, and then quickly slide your finger along the pad to form a smooth notion. You start by pressing down, and then quickly slide your finger along to forward in a smooth motion, but looks like your thumb's moving across a quarter of a pad's or stick's circumference. The notion for this move is simply QCF, but the actual inputs are down, down/forward, forward, which can also be written in a couple of ways. The backward sway is the opposite. Start from down and move your finger in a circle to back. The notion for the backward sway is QCB, which can also be written in other ways as well. Now, time for challenge 6. Try performing 3 forward sways, followed by 3 backward sways in a row. Now, one feature of the sways is that you can actually perform unique moves out of them. If I perform a forward sway and then press 2, you bear witness to one of the most glorious moves in all of Tekken history. The Death Fist. To perform this move, you can either immediately press 2 at the same time as you finish the quarter circle forward motion, which then cancels most of the sway stance, or you can delay the 2 press until just before the end of the sway to make the process as exaggerated as possible. This is where the delay notation comes in. The difference is that the plus notation, for example in quarter circle forward +2, means that you press 2 buttons at the exact same time. If we break down the quarter circle forward notion to its parts to make this easy to understand, this turns into D, D/F, F+2. To display a delayed input, we use the greater than symbol, turning it into quarter circle forward greater than 2. There are many reasons to display a move, some of which you'll see later, but for now, challenge 7. Try seeing how quickly you can perform quarter circle forward +2 and how slowly you can perform quarter circle forward delay 2. What you'll likely come across is that if you delay the 2 input for too long, it actually becomes while standing +2. This is because the sway input actually ends in the crouch state, meaning that we then instantly go into the while standing state afterwards. Note that this only occurs in forward sways and not backward sways. As an experiment, try pressing quarter circle forward +4. You should notice that pull will always perform while standing +4 if you time it right. This is because pull doesn't have an exclusive quarter circle forward +4 move, so instead the game looks for any while standing moves pull has and executes that instead. It's like a basic computer algorithm. Hopefully, this will all give you a brief idea of how states and stances work. Technically, the only difference between stances and states is that stances are character exclusive, such as pulls, sways, and states are universal, such as while standing, blocking, sidestepping, standing still, getting hit, being on the floor, etc. But some stances are much more unique. I could cover them in more detail, but at this point you should be aware of how they work, and I don't want to waste time as we've still got plenty of other things to cover. For example, can you believe we haven't even mentioned grabs yet? So, each character has 2 universal grabs, 1+3 and 2+4, which extend the character's left or right arm respectively. Grabs, also known as throws, are high moves that go through guard states, but can be broken if you press the right button. In Tekken 3, grabs are extremely difficult to react to, or in later games they are a little bit easier to do so. So because of this, I'm not going to teach you how to break grabs. Instead, if at any point while fighting the AI that you suspect their next move may be a grab, I recommend quickly ducking instead. Note that I do not recommend doing this against actual human players just while speedrunning. If a human player notices you start ducking when they try to grab you, they'll start to punish you with mid attacks and can enforce a mental mix-up against you. I digress, getting back on track. If you press forward +1 +3, or forward +2 +4, your grabs will get extra range. However, I have zero strats in Tekken 3 that utilize either of these grabs. In earlier stages there are better strats that carry your opponent faster, and in later stages the AI will simply flash duck under those grabs. Instead, I recommend using faster, character exclusive grabs. Note that grabs come in all different shapes and sizes. There are even crouch grabs and mid-air grabs. However, generally speaking, a lot of character exclusive grabs have a character reaching out with both arms and are performed with some kind of 1+2 input. Paul has two such grabs, down forward 1+2 and forward 1+2. Try them both out. Another form of grabs are universal tackles. These can be formed by running a certain distance, or by pressing down back 1+2, or full crouch down back, or down forward 1+2, depending on the character. Since tackles are easier to react to, I'll say that you can block tackles by pressing 2, or reverse them by pressing 1+2. When you're in the tackle position, you can alternate between 1 and 2 to punch your opponent, or either at the start of a tackle or after 3 punches, press 1+2 to alternate into an armbar. Although this is only the case with certain characters, not all characters have the armbar extension. Likewise, you can reverse the tackle at this point by pressing 1 or 2 if you're expecting a punch, or by pressing 1+2 if you're expecting an armbar. Even if tackles aren't ever your best option, there's something that always happens at some point while you're playing Tekken, so you should understand how it works. Challenge 8, and I just added this one for fun. Paul has a unique tackle move known as Ultimate Punishment. The input with Paul is down back 1+2, 2 down 1-1, neutral 4, 1, 1+2. Try performing this move now. Here's a tip. The move's input is very specific, so don't mash any buttons. Also, try timing the neutral input. 2 down 1, 1, neutral 4, 1, 1+2. Let go of the down input after Paul starts performing the 2 left punches. And only press 1, 4, 1+2 after you let go of down. Keep trying to move until you feel comfortable with it. And here's what it looks like. The next topic is parries, and this is something I'm only going to go over, and I'll explain why I'm only covering the skinner parries after the fact. Firstly, there's several different kinds of parries, and they're split into a few different categories. Punch parries, kick parries, punch and kick parries. By the way, all of these only work against highs and mids, not lows, and indeed, low parries. Not just this, but some of these parries are reversals, which means you counter with your own attack, while some are simply parries that just mean you dodge the move. The reason why I'm glancing over them is because parries vary greatly in input and property from character to character. Generally speaking, most parries are performed with back +1+3 or back +2+4. However, low parries have different notations for different characters, and some characters don't have any parries altogether. If you want to learn how to perform parries, there's some extra learning in a link in the description which will tell you everything you need to know, but for the sake of speedrunning, I don't think it's necessary. Now that being said, if you run any game from Tekken Tag Tournament onwards, there is one very useful form of parry, and that's the universal low parry. Now you simply need to press diagonally down and forward to perform a low parry with any character. This gives you a free juggle for a couple of juggles in a bit, don't worry, so it's well worth using liberally. For example, just like so. Again, this is a universal feature that every character in every Tekken game from Tekken Tag Tournament onwards has. Going back to Tekken 3, there are a couple more things we'll be covering with Paul. The first of these is counter hits, which is something that several strats in the run depend on. I explain counter hits best in my Tekken 3 run at ESA 2016, so I'll show you a clip of that now.
This is also a good time to explain counter hits. So there's two different forms of hits in this game. There's counter hits and there's regular hits. Normal hits do normal amounts of damage. It is when the AI isn't blocking. Counter hits are when you attack the AI while they're trying to attack you, and it interrupts their attack.
He can do flips too.
Basically, counter hits deal more damage, and in some cases they do. They usually give extra frames, so you get a better frame advantage off of the counter hit. And also, in some cases, they also give extra states. So, for example, they could stun the opponent and you could juggle them or do whatever else.
Thankfully, we can test counter hits very easily in practice mode. Simply pause and turn on counter attacks. Challenge 9. Find a move with pull where a counter hit affects the enemy differently, i.e. changes their state, compared to if the move hits the opponent normally. Pause the video now and have a try. If you don't have the time to dig through his moveset, I'll show you one such move now. Pulse quarter circle forward 1 on regular hit, launches the opponent into the air, and on counter hit, it causes them to be gut stunned. From Tekken 3 onwards, there's another way of invoking counter hits. By pressing all 4 buttons, that's 1, plus 2, plus 3, plus 4, you can enter a supercharged state where your hands start glowing for roughly 3 seconds. This is extremely risky to use, as although the next move you attack your opponent with will automatically be a counter hit, you can't block while in this state, and any move your opponent uses will automatically be a counter hit. I only use it in very rare situations during runs, but you may find a use for it in any strats you make up yourself. As a slight add-on to counter hits, there are also clean hits. Only a few attacks in the game are clean hits, but Paul is one of those in his Death Fist quarter circle forward 2. Clean hits essentially do extra damage if you're in very close range to your opponent and hit the opponent straight on, making it a clean hit. Give you an example here. Paul's Death Fist on clean hit did 49 damage, as you can see in the top left, but from a little further away, it only did 33. Look at the percent score if I hit clean. 148%. Some moves when hit clean, such as Kazuya's while standing +2 from Tekken 1 to Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection, also put the opponent into a different state, just like with counter hits. The last part of the tutorial we're going to be covering with pull is crushes. Essentially, some moves and starters in Tekken will allow you to crush particular attack heights during the move's animation. For example, hop kicks, like Paul's up forward +3 and up forward +4, grant low crush abilities. Some other moves, like very brief parts of Paul's Death Fist and the Sway Stance, grant high crush abilities, as I mentioned earlier. But note that this is only the case during a short part of a move's animation. Some moves grant crush abilities throughout their whole animation, while some will only crush moves during a part. A very few number of moves and stances, perhaps most notoriously being Shall Use Arta Phoenix Stance, also grant mid-crush abilities. Now to conclude part 1 of this tutorial, we're going to pause, return to the character select screen, and pick Jin again, or Kazuya or Devil Jin depending on your game. Select Hwoarang as your opponent, or Baek if you're playing on Tekken 2. This is the advanced part of a general tutorial. The first thing we're going to discuss is an advanced form of movement known as a crouch dash, and you're going to want to look at the controller cam during this. A crouch dash is something that only a few characters can do in the game. In Tekken 3, only Jin, Heihachi, Hwoarang, and King can do crouch dashes, but they're still extremely important to learn. First of all, the notation to perform a crouch dash is forward, neutral, down, down/forward. This is spelled as CD for short. Just try doing one now. It doesn't matter if you can't, just give it a shot. This kind of notation is something that some people will be able to get the hang of instantly, while others may have difficulty. Don't worry if you are having trouble. It took me an extremely long time to get the hang of it. But then again, I used to play on the analog stick of an Xbox 360 controller. Now I use a DualShock 4 pad, as you can see, and I find it extremely easy. If you have a controller that works with both a stick and a pad, Try it with both and see which you find easier. I would recommend using a pad, but unless if you're on an arcade stick, but of course it's personal preference. Just give it a few tries. Here's a few tips if you are struggling. First of all, ignore the neutral input. As you naturally move your thumb from forward to down, your controller will reset to neutral. Forward, down, forward, down. No matter how quickly I go, I cannot go from forward to down without hitting a neutral input. So just forget it's even there. Just drag your thumb from forward to down, quickly tap forward, wait a moment, and then go to down. You have a lot more leeway than you think you do. Then just slide your thumb from down to down forward. Challenge 10. Perform 3 crouch dashes on one side of the screen, swap sides, and then perform another 3 crouch dashes on the opposite side of the screen. You really need to get used to playing on both sides. Even though when you play on arcade mode in Tekken 3 and other games, you start on the left side by default, there are still many situations where, due to either an attack, jumping over, a throw, anything, you went up on the right hand side. And there are a number of starting Tekken players who can only execute certain commands on one side of the screen is staggering. Get used to the command on both sides. Don't even worry if you spend an hour plus here. Some people will pick it up instantly, and some take hours and hours and hours. Just try it for as long as you have the patience. Keep trying the input and experimenting with it until you're comfortable. Now here's a reason why crouch dashes are important. They can cover distance between you and your opponent extremely quickly, and there are several different moves you can perform with them. Two of the most famous of Jin's are the Wind Gun Fist performed with forward, neutral, down, /forward +2. And the Hell Sweep performed with forward, neutral, down, /forward +4/4. Now remember, you're fighting against the AI, not a human. You can't use a 50-50 mid-low mix-up on AI. Always go for what you think is the optimal move at any one time. The longer you play, the more you'll start to realize what the optimal move means. Getting back on track, there's no point to learning crouch dashes if you can't perform moves out of them. Try Jin's Wind Gun Fist input, crouch dash +2. Again, this is something that most people will get the hang of very quickly, while others will have great difficulty with it, and that's okay. Practice it for a while. If you're still struggling, try pressing /forward +2 first. See what happens if you time it differently. I'm going to just quickly go to webcam here. As I was saying, try pressing /forward +2 first. I'm just going to... Okay. Try pressing /forward +2 first. And see what happens if you time it differently. So that you press 2 a bit before down forward, or press down forward a bit before 2. Keep trying and keep experimenting with the input until you get the hang of pressing down forward 2. See how lenient it is. Then go back to the Wind Gun Fist input. Do the crouch dash and then press 2 afterwards. Leave it as long as you can. Again, practice makes perfect. After you leave it for a long time, then you can start to tighten up the input. If you're not getting it and it's starting to frustrate you, that's okay. Leave it for a while and carry on with the tutorial. I'm not expecting you to pick up all of this in a day. This is the kind of tutorial that you should pick up, drop, and digest in small morsels. You never stop learning Tekken. I have not stopped learning Tekken. I'm still learning how to play better, so take your time and don't think that you need to learn everything in order. I'm just putting this in the order that I think makes sense, but it's okay if you go all over the place. Give a crouch dash 2 input a few more tries and then carry on. Now the next thing we're going to learn, and this is the most advanced form of movement in the game, is dash cancelling. Remember that movement in Tekken is a 3D space, so at any one point you can go from a side step to a back dash to a forward dash to a crouch dash to just blocking. Movement is fluid, and you need to learn how to interchange different forms of movement. Here's a quick tip that I found very useful. If you ever find yourself just holding back and waiting for the opponent to do something, you could be sidestepping or moving instead. You don't want to block your opponent's moves, you want to make them whiff. That's true with humans and AI. So how do you dash cancel? Well, there's a lot of different ways to dash cancel, and to be honest, it isn't the most important thing to learn as an amateur, so I'm going to repeat each way very quickly, and if you want to learn them, you can practice them and replay the video. From a sidestep or sidewalk, you can hold back to block, double tap back to backdash, or double tap forward to dash forward. From a crouch dash, you can press another forward to go into a forward dash. And here's an interesting technique. When you dash either forwards or backwards, you can press down slash forward or down slash back to crouch, and then press forward or backward again to go right into another dash. This input for this is forward forward, down forward forward, or back back, down back back, down back back, down back back. This is mainly used for backdashing as the quickest general way to make the distance between you and your opponent, and it's known as the Korean backdash, because Koreans, of course, were the ones who found it. Now, even though you can move about quickly, the most important thing is that you can quickly block at any point while dashing. From a sidestep or forward dash, just hold B to block. As you can see, you can do it instantly. From a back dash, hold down B and then go to B without letting go of the pad. And from a crouch dash, cancel to a forward dash by pressing forward and then hold back to block. You can also perform a wave dash or repeated crouch dashes by cancelling the crouch dash into a forward dash and then into another crouch dash. The input for this is forward, neutral, down, down slash forward, neutral, down, down slash forward, neutral, etc. This is the other most advanced form of movement in the game, and it's not especially useful in speedrunning, so you don't need to learn it. Just give it a try now. If you're interested, check out some of the extra learning in the description below, as the main man can teach you how to wave dash extremely well, who is a very proficient Mishima player. Now from a crouch dash, you can actually perform rising moves as well as forward dash moves. To perform a rising move from crouch dash, such as wall rising +4, press forward neutral, down, down slash forward, forward +4. It's identical to forward neutral, quarter circle forward +4, if that makes it any easier. The input for this in short is WD WS +4, or wave dash while standing +4. To perform a forward dash move, press forward neutral, down, down slash forward, neutral, forward +2. Is it the same as performing forward forward +2? And if you're curious as to how this works, it's because of the second neutral input. Forward forward 2 is actually forward neutral forward +2. And going from a crouch dash to a second forward input is just like performing a dash. Again, this is a bit of an information overload, but none of this is especially essential to just learning how to speedrun Tekken. I wanted to do it all in one go, rather than drip feed each part and spend ages on advanced techniques when we haven't even gotten to the good stuff yet. So if you are interested, here's a challenge for you. Perform crouch dash +4, wave dash while standing +4, and crouch dash forward forward +4, and see what the difference is between each notation. Keep trying until you can get each one after the other in a row. Again, this is advanced stuff, so either take your time with it or leave it on the back burner and move on. Either's fine, as long as you at least understand the concepts. Alright, so that might have been a bit too hard, too fast. Ultimately though, these forms of advanced movement are things that take anybody an extremely long time to learn. And so, Many different tutorials already exist or use different ways to help you grasp the concepts of how these forms of movement actually work. This first video is just a general crash course, and I want to spend more time on other things. So if you are interested in learning these forms of advanced movement and my tutorial wasn't comprehensive enough, there will be some other advanced movement guides in the extra learning section of the description. Moving on now, I want to discuss natural combos. This is where we start getting close to talking about both juggles and frame data, but natural combos are a very simple concept to understand, which should hopefully help you be able to learn the more advanced parts of Tekken. Essentially, natural combos are where you can perform a move or series of moves, and when the first attack hits your opponent, you are able to naturally continue attacking your opponent before they recover. To visually demonstrate what I mean, if you're playing on a later Tekken game, enabling the stand to guard option in practice mode is extremely useful to practice this. If not, like I am on Tekken 3, you can get the same effect by setting the training dummy to stand, then midway through your combo, pause the game and set it to stand guard. Some of Jin's natural combos include his 1-2 punches, back forward plus 2-1, his 1-1-2 combo, and his down forward 4-4 and wire rising plus 4-4 combos. These are all moves where if the first hit connects, all the other hits will also connect for free, making it a natural combo. Some of Jin's combos that are non-natural combos include his full back forward 2-1-2 combo, his wire rising plus 1-2 combo, and his down forward plus 1-2 combo. The opponent will have an opportunity to block partway through the combo. However, these examples are actually natural counter combos, also known as natural combos on counter hit. As the name suggests, these combos will land on the opponent if they land as a counter hit. Observe. You may have noticed that the first hit of back forward plus 2-1-2 looks different on counter hit compared to normal hit. It stuns the opponent on counter hit, which is what allows you to land the full combo. You remember when we covered counter hits, but some moves give different states when they land as a counter hit. This can allow you to notice mid-combo whether it landed as a normal hit or counter hit, and then decide whether to perform the full combo or just the first two hits. Yes, that was me subtly introducing a new concept. The next thing we're going to talk about is hit confirming. Many natural combos in Tekken are hit confirmable, which means you can perform the first part of a combo, and depending on whether that part hits or not, you can decide whether it's safe to finish the combo. These are also known as hit confirmable combos. Now these are much easier to practice on later games which have the stand to guard function, and I'll explain why. Let's take Jin's 1-1-2 combo as an example. You perform all three hits really quickly. As long as the first jab hits, they'll all hit. However, you can delay the last hit, making a combo 1-1 delay 2, as I'll try to do here. I'm not getting it, but take my word for it, you can delay the last hit. It's a lot harder to time without the stand to guard function. All hit confirmable combos have to be delayed in this fashion, meaning if you want to hit confirm back forward plus 2-1, you perform back forward 2, delay 1. However, if you take too long to react to the hit and you delay the combo too much, your opponent will be able to block again in some cases. In other cases, you only have a very short amount of time to react to a natural combo before you lose your window. 1-1-2 and back forward 2-1 have very large windows, but other moves do not. For example, Jin's down forward 4-4 isn't hit confirmable in this game. I'll try now. Oh, one move. I'm trying to press the second button after I see the first hit, but I can't get it. In later games, down forward 4-4 is actually hit confirmable, but only if you have extremely quick reactions. It's not something you can really do on the fly. Challenge 13, and this is a small challenge. Try seeing how much you can delay Jin's back forward 2-1-2 series before you lose your window to attack. Remember that back forward 2-1 is a natural combo, and back forward 2-1-2 is a natural counter combo. Try practicing the move on both normal hit and counter hit, and see if you notice any difference between performing the move instantly and delaying it. If you don't notice anything, I'll tell you in a moment, but try practicing this yourself first. Did you get it? The trick was actually the gut stun that back forward 2 gives on counter hit. If you perform back forward 2-1, the gut stun remains. But if you perform back forward 2 delay 1, you can lose that property if you're too slow. Meaning that back forward 2 delay 1 delay 2 isn't a natural counter combo. But back forward 2, 1 delay 2 is. This is just one example of how complex these combos can be. Now unfortunately, hit confirmable moves are something that the practice modes in earlier Tekken games just aren't equipped to deal with, so I'm going to end this section here. However, when we get to the individual character sections, I'll tell you each character's natural combos and natural counter combos, and where relevant, I'll try to inform you on their individual properties. Okay, now the next part I'm going to explain is quite small, but it's something well worth noting. To do that, we're quickly going to go back to player select, and this time select Jin as both your character and your opponent. Now we're going to go onto combo training or defensive training, depending on the game, and select this combo as the combo that the opponent is going to perform, the one you're going to practice against. That means the opponent, is going to perform the move player 2, not you, player 1. Now let me tell you something about this combo before I start before I let the opponent perform a move. The first 4 hits of this combo are all high. So just to feel good about yourself, I want you to practice this. First, go into crouch guard and duck under the first 4 jabs, and then hit the opponent with a crouch jab after the 4th jab. Don't go for a rising move, as the opponent's combo will likely hit you out of the move first. Just keep it safe. I'm going to do that now. Notice something? Now because the first 4 hits are high, you should be able to block the first attack and then duck under the next few. So hold back, and after you block the first jab, hold down back to block under the rest. Just try that now. If you did, you would have noticed something. You can't block under the other jabs even though they're high. I'll show you again now. To show you one more time so you can see the controller. The reason why you can't duck under the start of this combo is because it actually jails, which is the next thing I wanted to teach you. Some moves in Tekken have this jailing effect, which means that if you block the first hit, you're unable to do anything but block for some time. To give you an example of how strong jailing is, even if I hold forward and spam an attack, I can't do anything but guard, like so. One more time. As you can see. There's not much else to know, just know that some moves in the game jail, so don't be surprised if you see it. Alright, I think you've waited long enough for this. For some people this is going to be their favourite part of the tutorial, and for others this is probably going to be their least favourite. Juggles. Now if you know anything about fighting games, you should know that the #1 rule of fighting games is that juggles are really fucking cool, and learning optimal juggles for a character is one of the most enjoyable parts of a fighting game for many, right behind using that said juggle against your opponent for massive damage. So presuming you don't know what a juggle is, what is a juggle? Well, there are certain moves in Tekken that are known as launchers. These are moves that will either stun your opponent or launch them into the air, giving you opportunities for guaranteed follow-up attacks before they have a chance to recover. Just to give you an example of what a juggle looks like, I'll perform one now. Now, while I certainly recommend you learn the staple juggles that I'm going to teach you in my character-specific tutorial section in the later video, I want to immediately tell you that juggle situations can become radically different to what you may become used to in practice mode. Many different things can affect your juggle options, such as the axis, your distance away from the opponent, the size or hitbox of the opponent character, and how the move actually hit the opponent. In some cases, you may use a regular move such as a jab and actually hit the opponent out of a mid-air attack, causing them to float. In this case, you need to quickly take all the factors I previously mentioned into account and decide on the fly what the optimal juggle to perform would be. Now, one last thing before I give you some example juggles to learn is to remember that you are still learning how to speedrun. Small optimizations count, and if you can KO your opponent within the juggle, always go for the option that's either the most consistent or the fastest. Generally speaking, don't go for the long and complicated 5-hit juggle when you can win with a quicker, more consistent 3-hit juggle. Time is of the essence. In fact, a lot of times in runs we don't actually like going for juggles. Jin is by far the most combo heavy character in the speedrun for Tekken 3, and oftentimes with other characters we'll forgo a slow but high damage juggle for an opportunity at a high power move such as an unblockable, which KOs the opponent in under a second compared to a longer, more consistent juggle. If you don't know already, this is an important point to remember. Juggle damage scales, meaning your first mid-air hit will do about half the damage compared to if the move hit a grounded opponent, and the next move will do even less still, as I'll just quickly try to demonstrate it. The percentages vary wildly from game to game, but when it comes to speedrunning, just remember that a high damage juggle may not always be the best option, something we'll be looking at again in a moment. But first, let's actually look at some juggles. I'm going to start by giving you a challenge to perform some basic juggles so you get the idea. Before we start, pause and change the training dummy to quick roll or quick tech roll depending on your game. Now I'm going to try my best to give you juggles that work on every Tekken game, but I'm afraid that because juggles vary so radically from game to game, Tekken 1 to 2 players especially will miss out here. Still, here we go. Perform the following juggles that you see on screen now, and afterwards I will perform the juggles and you can see what they actually look like, whether you got them right or not. Hopefully, some of those juggles will have given you an idea of how tricky they can sometimes be to pull off. No juggle has 100% consistency, so you need to be aware of the factors I mentioned before: axis, distance, the opponent, and their life bar. You also need to get the timing of each juggle into your head. Do not mash juggles or try to perform them as quickly as possible. You need to get the hang of the timing. It's very easy to get nervous when you're trying to juggle out for the first time and try to rush a movement, or you're thinking in your head, but you need to get this exact timing down. Usually it's fairly loose. You just need to experiment with the timing and don't be nervous about missing. Timing is key when it comes to juggles. If those juggles were too easy for you, there will be some advanced juggles in a bonus challenge at the very end, but fair warning, they are not for first timers, so consider them to be an ultimate test of your skill. The next thing we're going to cover is the ground game. Just press 4-3 and you'll land on the ground. There are several different ways to get off of the ground and back up, and it's important to know your options. First of all, remember that this is a speedrun, and unless if you're on low health, you want to get back up quickly, not safely. In most cases, you can quickly tech roll by tapping down +1 or up +1 to tech roll up or down. This is what the AI was doing while you were practicing your juggles. And we do take advantage of tech traps, more on that later on. But the AI does not take advantage of such tech traps, meaning in most cases, tech rolling is your best option to get up. However, some attacks, most notably a majority of throws, won't give you the option to tech roll, or you may just miss the timing of the tech roll. In this case, your fastest option is to stand straight up by pressing up. Alternatively, you can roll backwards by pressing B, roll forwards by pressing F, perform a low get up kick by pressing 3, perform a mid get up kick by pressing 4, side roll by pressing 1 or down 1. After you side roll, you can hold down to stay on the floor. You can toe kick. When you're face down, you can press 3 and it will perform a low kick, which can launch your opponent if they're close, and it's a clean hit. When you're at face up, feet towards the opponent, you can press down +3, and it will perform a little toe kick. You can also forward, backwards, or side roll into a low or mid get up kick. Still, these are things you pick up just by playing the game. I've used all these options during runs before, and to give you a few general tips of what to do, and this is against AI, not human players. Always tech roll when you can. If you can't, the next best option is to stand straight up. If you're very close to your opponent, do a low kick. If you're far away from your opponent, either forward roll and low kick or stand up and dash towards them. If you're low on health, either stand up and block or back roll, depending on what you think is the safest option. But these are just some general pieces of advice that I want to give when you're on the receiving end of ground game, but they're things that you should pick up over time anyway. A more interesting thing to cover is when you've got your opponent into the ground game. This is most commonly known as Okizeme. The great thing about AI is that they are reasonably predictable and can also be manipulated. These are character specific strats, so I won't cover them in detail here, but just to give you an idea of how some strats might work, try the following. Make sure you're on the left side of the screen, set the opponent to quick roll up, and then try the following combo that you see on screen now. And make sure that you do the short version of the unblockable and not the long version. Then after you're done, set the opponent to quick roll down and try the same combo. If you tried the combo, you should notice that this unblockable only hits opponents who tech roll to your left, their right. In actual fact, this strat is relatively unique in this case, as most tech trap strats actually hit opponents regardless of the direction they tech roll. As I try this combo now, you should notice that the unblockable only hits opponents who tech roll to your left, their right. If I set it to quick roll down and then try the combo again, it completely misses. I did do the longer version there, but it would have still completely missed. This strat is actually one of the few cases where the strat is a 50-50, but it shows you how varied some of these Okizeme strats can be. There's no one-size-fits-all rule with Tekken. We'll cover strats in more detail in the character-specific sections. Now we're almost at the end of this tutorial, but there's one last very important topic to cover: frame data and punishing. The two go hand in hand because understanding the frame data helps you learn how to punish optimally. So first of all, don't worry, you don't need to learn frame data and numbers for every single character to speedrun Tekken, and I can understand if some people don't like the idea of it. That's why I saved this section for the last part of the video, because I know anyone still watching is extremely dedicated at this point. Don't worry, I'm not going to teach you all the frame data, largely because of how greatly it changes from game to game. Instead, I'm just going to teach you the basics, the frame data of most common moves, and then move on to punishing. Now when you're playing Tekken, you should know that the game is locked to a constant 60 FPS or frames per second. Outside of old PAL games where it's 50 FPS, but we're not getting into that. That means that the game's graphics are refreshing and updating 60 times each second, which means that Tekken games run at 60 Hz. However, the game's engine is also refreshing 60 times a second, keeping in sync with the frame rate. The two are separate, but in sync. This means that the game checks your controller 60 times a second for any combination of inputs, without taking things like latency into account. You don't need to learn the technical concepts in any more detail than this, just be aware that Tekken runs at 60 frames per second and your in-game inputs are recognized at the same rate. So, how fast exactly are basic actions in Tekken? Well, going from a neutral position to a guard position takes exactly 1 frame. If you hold back, 1 frame later, you're guarding. The same applies for crouch guarding. Now, universally speaking, the fastest moves in the game are your basic jabs performed by pressing 1. There are exceptions, but we're just focusing on the standards. When you press 1, you don't immediately punch your opponent. The attack animation starts immediately, but it actually takes, on average, 10 frames before your punch lands on the opponent. Again, this number can differ depending on the character in the game, but for the vast majority of the time, it takes 10 frames before your attack lands on the opponent. This means that 1 is a 10 frame move, which is also written as 10F, meaning 10 frames, or I10, meaning this move impacts against the opponent after a minimum of 10 frames. At 10 frames, your basic punch is the fastest move in the series for the majority of characters. Attack animations are split up into 3 sections. These are known as startup frames, active frames, and recovery frames. These names should be self-explanatory, but just to be safe, startup frames are the frames before the attack hits. Meaning that if your opponent lands an attack on you while you're still in this startup mode, it will be a counter hit. A good example is an unblockable. An unblockable has over a second of startup frames. And you can easily react and counter attack before the unblockable hits you. Active frames are the frames where the attack can actually land on your opponent. For example, even though the 1 jab is I10, if the opponent is, for example, a little bit further away from you, or they're getting up from a crouching position, the attack may input a few frames later than 10. A great example of a move that is especially on active frames is Ogre's Flame Breath. Recovery frames are where your attack ends and you're waiting to regain control of your character. Some attacks may take longer to recover if they're blocked, for example, most low sweeps, so be careful as you're vulnerable to attack while recovering from your own attack. From Tekken 2 onwards, there's a very useful feature called Hit Analysis, which is great for visually interpreting frame data. Go and turn it on now. You can notice immediately that both you and the AI turn green. If you perform a move, you'll notice that you turn red. If the AI blocks or is hit by your move, they also turn red. Essentially, when you're red, it means that you cannot control the character during that time. You can buffer inputs, but the character won't do anything until it recovers from the move it's just performed. To give you an example, try inputting forward +2. You'll notice that your character immediately turns red the moment you finish the input. However, if you input something like 1-1, you should notice that your character only turns red while it's recovering from a move, not while it's performing 1-1. This is because Jin is still accepting inputs. You can press 2 after 1-1 to go into 1-1-2. The moment he starts the animation for the third punch, he turns red because he can't accept any more inputs. This information is useful because from it, you can find out the frame advantage or disadvantage of moves when they are blocked or when they hit. In theory, you can record the input like I am now, play it back frame by frame, and see which character recovers first and by how many frames. For example, a standard 1 jab will give you a +1 frame advantage on block. This is pretty much universally true of most characters in most Tekken games. Now unfortunately, the exact frame data of Tekken 3 has been lost to time, but most basic attacks will have largely similar frame data across all games. With that being said, I can give you a basic idea of how fast and slow certain moves are. Most characters' standard jabs come out at 10 frames, as I just said. Jin's 1-1-2 is 10 frames, or I-10. There are exceptions, but generally speaking, most characters' fastest moves will be 10 frames. Tekken players use this information to categorize moves as being safe on block or unsafe on block. For example, Jin's 1-1 move is safe on block, but his 1-1-2 is unsafe. That is also why it's important to hit confirm his 1-1-2 string. Any move that leaves you at a maximum frame of disadvantage of -9 or less is classified as a safe move in Tekken, or any move that leaves you with a frame disadvantage of -10 or greater is classed as unsafe and leaves you open to be punished. Take a mental note of the word punish, we'll be using it a lot in the next section. If any character has a fast jab, they will usually be between 10 to 12 frames. Jin's 2-2 is also I-10 in Tekken 3 for example. The next fastest moves are pokes. These will often be decent damage, mid-pokes, but are safe, but leave you at a slight frame disadvantage on block. Jin's while rising 4-4 streamers I-11, or his down forward 1-2 and down forward 4-4 strings are I-13. Then launches often start at between 14 to 16 frames. These will be your high damage punishes. If you block a bigger move that you can tell your opponent will take a while to recover from, such as a low sweep, you can hit them with a launcher. Jin, however, has the luxury of an extremely fast launcher in Tekken 3 to tag tournament. His Electric Wind Godfist, if I can hit it, there we go, actually comes out at 11 frames, while his next fastest launches are while rising +2 and down +3 +4 at 14 frames both. Note that depending on how quickly you perform an Electric Wind Godfist, it may take longer than 11 frames to come out. There's a big difference between an 11 frame Electric Wind Godfist, forward, tilde, neutral, tilde, down slash forward, colon 2, the colon standing for a frame perfect input where you press down, forward and 2 at the same frame, and a slower Electric Wind Godfist, forward, neutral, down slash forward, colon 2. You probably can't tell the difference here, but I was intentionally doing slightly slower Electric Wind Godfist there. A regular Wind Godfist is also slower than the Electric Wind Godfist, no matter how quickly you do it, and it's -10 on block compared to the Electric Wind Godfist +5, +4 in Tekken 3 on block. So keep that in mind when punishing with a Mishima. Some other important moves to remember the frame data for are things like long range punishes. Jin's forward 2 I believe comes out at 15 frames in Tekken 3, and most other long range knockdown moves are around the same speed. Note that although Jin's forward 2 is unsafe on block, due to its knockback property, it's virtually impossible to punish because jabs just don't have the range to hit you, making it technically safe. Most grabs also come out at 11 to 12 frames. Jin's 1+3, 2+4, and forward 1+2 are all 12 frames, whereas down forward +2+3 and quarter circle back +1+3 are all 11 frames. In time you should be able to get a rough idea of how fast and how safe or unsafe a move is just by looking at it. I certainly would recommend any speedrunners look up frame data. It isn't necessary until you get to a very high level of play. However, just keep note of each character's main punishes. Their jab launcher, their 11 to 13 frame punisher, their launch punisher, their long range punisher, and their punishers from while standing. As well as frame punishes, you should also take note of when you can whiff punish an opponent. Moves that your opponent do that completely miss you. Either because you're too far away, you sidestep them, you ducked under them, or you crushed them. As mentioned earlier, it's great when an opponent whiffs a move because they're recovering from it and you aren't. You have time to dash up and punish them for their mistake while they're recovering. This is when long range punishes are especially useful. Ideally with Jin, you will want to punish whiffed moves with his dashing Electric Wind Godfist, or DEWGF. This is the same as a regular Electric Wind Godfist, except by dashing forward, before going into the crouch dash you gain extra distance. Of course this is a very high level technique, so I wouldn't expect any players to learn it. Instead, try dashing up and doing down +3/+4, or simply do forward 2. It's better to go for a punish that you're confident will hit than risk going for a big move that you're not confident you can connect. So now we're at the final part of this tutorial, just frame moves. A few characters have just frame or frame perfect moves. As I mentioned before, Jin's just frame move is his Electric Wind Godfist. Essentially, a just frame, or JF move, is one where you have to perform one or more button presses with, you guessed it, frame perfect accuracy. Technically, the EWGF actually gives players 2 frames of leniency rather than 1, but most players still consider it a just frame move due to its high difficulty to learn. Just frame moves are necessary to learn, and it's very likely there will be some just frame moves that you can execute more easily than others. However, definitely be aware that they exist. Challenge 16. Land one electro golf fist on the left side of the screen, jump over, and land one electro golf fist on the right side. Keep trying until you land both in a row. I'm suggesting this because, again, a major mistake that most starting players is not practicing on both sides of the screen. I made that mistake when I was starting, and for a while I was only proficient when playing on the left hand side. This is not a mistake you should make as well. I didn't mean to do a kick there. So if you're done with that, then congratulations, you've reached the end of part 1 of this tutorial. You should now have a great understanding of all the fundamentals of Tekken. So to finish, let's have 2 challenges to revise everything you've just learnt, and to make things interesting, we're going to go back to the character select and pick another character, King. Pick Paul as your opponent. Now we're going to have 3 very quick challenges all in a row. Challenge 17. I want you to perform the following moves and combos with King Della on screen now, without even knowing what they are or what they do. Pause the video and then resume it after you've finished each one. Okay, done all those? Think you figured out what each move is? Well, here's a recording of what they actually all are. Now, challenge 18. Do each of those moves again, but also write down how fast you think each move is based on frames and whether the move is safe or unsafe on block. Here's the list of moves on screen again in case you forgot. Now again, try each move again and write down how fast you think each move is based on frames and whether the move is safe or unsafe on block. Done that? Here's the actual frame data for each move. Finally, challenge 19. Land the following combos you see on screen now. Tried it? Here's what they actually look like. Did you manage it? Here's what they actually look like. And with that, we are done with part 1. But don't get too confident, we've still got a lot more to cover. You might know the fundamentals, but you still don't know how to speedrun just yet. In part 2, we'll be looking at all of the main categories available to run, how the AI works, and some general advice regarding fighting the AI. Then, we'll start focusing on Tekken 3 in part 3 and learning the actual strats used in runs. However, to give you something to do while waiting for part 2 to come out, let me give you challenge 20, ultra advanced combos. Feel free to come back and practice these in your own time. Even if you don't land them at all, let alone land them consistently, just trying to practice these will improve your skill. Go back to Jin to try these, and on the menu, select your opponent to quick roll. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. If this tutorial was helpful, leave a like, comment and share with any of your friends who also might be interested in learning how to speedrun Tekken. When I finish making part 2, you can click on the icon below to go straight to it. Shirdel out. Each character has at least one unblockable attack, while some such as Ogre have over 10. Jin has 2, one that comes out quite quickly, and that was a slow one, great. Each character has at least one unblockable attack, while some such as Ogre have over 10. Jin has 2, one that comes out quite quickly. Each character has at least one unblockable attack, while some such as Ogre have over 10. Jin has 2, one that comes out quite quickly. Oh my fuck. Okay. Some moves require you to press 2 buttons in quick succession, the same as dashing. An example is Jin's Demon Scissors move, performed by pressing 4, then 3 afterwards. The small gap between the 2 button presses is represented with a tilde, by performing the move multiple times until you get the hang of the notation. Great, that looks really good. Now from a crouch dash, you can actually perform while rising moves as well as forward dash moves. To perform a while rising move from crouch dash, such as while rising +4, press forward to neutral, down, down/forward, forward +4. Now from a crouch dash, you can actually perform while rising moves, such as... Now from a crouch dash, you can actually perform while rising moves as well as forward dash moves. To perform a while rising move from crouch dash, such as while rising +4, press forward to neutral, down, down/forward, forward +4. Apologise, I got the wrong move there for a second. It's a bit of a tight input, but it's a very smooth motion once you get the hang of it. It's identical. It's okay. The reason why the start of this combo, reason why you can't duck under this challenge 16. Land 1 electric wind gold fist on the left side of the screen, jump over, then land 1 electric wind gold fist on the right side. Challenge 16. Land 1 electric wind gold fist on the left side of the screen. Challenge 16. Land 1 electric wind gold fist on the left side of the screen. Challenge 16. Land 1 electric wind gold fist on the left side of the screen. Jump over and land one electric wind gold fist on the right side. Fucking bullshit. Challenge 16. Land 1 electric wind gold fist on the left side of the screen. Jump over and land 1 electric wind gold fist on the right side.